Welcome to Music Monday. The day this is going to be posted is going to be Monday. And I told you in my last video about my Mormon story that I'm going to talk a lot about cupcakes and chewed gum and poop laced brownies this week. Today I'm going to talk about the licked cupcake. Today is Music Monday. This video will probably be a little longer. Usually Music Monday is pretty short, but I have a lot to say about this topic. So today's song is going to be Lick My Cupcake by the Church of Korihor. Just a quick warning, this song is pretty innuendo heavy, so it may not be appropriate for children. It also may go over their heads. Your kids, your call. Just giving you that quick note. This song, you're going to need to Google it because it came across my feed this week. You'll have to Google it because it's not currently on Spotify. I have tried to find more on the band Church of Korihor, but I have had no luck. So I don't know if this is like a one-off song, some kind of like parody, or if it's a brand new band or something. I don't know for sure. So Google that. I really liked it. I enjoyed it. So I think if they are kind of a startup band, I would love to follow them and get more information. If you have any more information, let me know. Anyway, check it out when you have time by yourself without your kids, at least first. I'm going to tell a story now. All of the names in my story have been changed to protect the people involved. So if you grew up with me, you shouldn't recognize these names unless you were there and you know who it is just because you were there. But again, it protects the people. So anyway, every Mormon girl, in my experience, though this may not be true for all the men, but in my experience, it's pretty much just the girls. The men and boys in my life are including my sons, are completely unaware of this whole analogy. But my daughters have had this analogy taught to them at camps and churches and things. It's the analogy of the licked cupcake. This object lesson is one we all received. The retelling of this story is based on... Scarlett's all gross. She had that. Yep. See? And she is only 16. So it's still alive and well in the Mormon church. Anyway, but the lesson that I am about, the experience that I'm about to portray is literally an experience and a lesson that I had. Okay, so the teacher starts with a beautifully and deliciously decorated cupcake. It was gorgeous. It looked like a picture, you know, like she must have spent hours on this cupcake. Anyway, it was chocolate, and it had I'll explain it as we go here, okay? So it was just beautiful, but she holds up this cupcake and she looks at us girls. There were probably about 12 of us, and we were sitting in a semicircle. So we were all in one line, which was kind of different because, and you know, when you walk into a classroom and you know, like, oh, the seats are set up different. We're going to have a really cool lesson today. We're really going to get something interesting. And because normally there were like two lines, like there were a lot of us. So we would just kind of like put our chairs together and then like have this discussion. But it was one long line, well, a semicircle. And so we were sitting there, and she holds up this cupcake, and it's beautifully decorated. And she says, looks to the girl at the far, like her right over here. And she says, and she goes, do you want this cupcake? Isn't it beautiful? This cupcake is for you. Do you want to have this cupcake? And so the girl, of course, is like, yes. So the teacher, she unwraps the cupcake from its paper cup, which was white with red hearts on it. And she unwraps the cupcake and everything. And she's like, at first, we're kind of like, whatever, you know, whatever. We don't know what she's doing, just taking it out of the cup. And I'm reading this because I want to make sure that I get all the details correctly. And we all watch, and we're familiar with, and we know there's going to be a cupcake for each of us because we can see the Tupperware that's under the little peeking out from under a coat that she's got there under the table. So we know there's going to be one for each of us. We're not stupid, but we're curious. We know something is going to happen, and we know there's going to be a point that she's making. And then she takes this cupcake and she licks the cupcake like herself. And it's this big scoop of pink frosting, like just swirled on the top, okay, like this. Pink frosting, and it's covered with little red and white sprinkles and everything, and she scoops it out on her tongue. And we're like, okay, whatever. And then, starting with the girl at the end on the left over here, she takes this cupcake and she passes it to this girl on the end. And she goes, pass this to Allie. And so each girl is kind of like, okay, carefully, we're passing it. At first, we're careful. We don't want to touch it too much. We don't want to damage it for Allie at the end of the row who's going to get this cupcake. And we're passing it along. And then there's this girl who we'll call Phoebe. She accidentally gets a little bit of the frosting on her fingers, because there's like a lot of frosting, little frosting on her fingers, and she passes it to the next girl, and she kind of gingerly licks her fingers and gets that frosting off of it or whatever. And we're watching as this cupcake is being passed down the line. And and a few girls away from Allie, it's almost there to Allie, and a few girls away from her, there's this girl named Christine who brazenly, we're calling her Christine, brazenly just takes a whole bite out of the other side that wasn't licked, just a whole bite. And she takes this bite, and which is, it's chocolate, and it's like decadent looking. And out of the side, the teacher didn't lick, so she's taking this bite, and everybody kind of cracks up. Like, we're just laughing a little bit, and we might even be a little bit jealous that we aren't the girl who took that step and took that bite out of the side. And the girl next to, the next girl kind of takes it and hurriedly passes it over and gets right along to Allie, who holds this destroyed lump of a cupcake in both of her open hands to try to kind of like keep it from falling all over everywhere. And she looks up expectantly at the teacher, who says, Allie, there is your cupcake. Go ahead and take a bite. And Allie, of course, makes a face and is like, no, ew, that's gross, And the teacher then tells us that the cupcake represents each of us. It represents our bodies and our spirits and our virtue. And that when we don't keep the law of chastity, we become damaged. She told us that while we can repent and be forgiven, our virtue and our purity can never actually be restored. And that we need to save ourselves until marriage. So, do you know how old I was when I had that lesson? I was 12. I was very new to Young Women's. I was 12. And I know I was 12 because we were in the old church, which was brown and orange. And shortly after I turned 12, we moved over to the new church, which was blue and nice and upgraded and everything. And so I remember the classroom we were in, and it was orange. So I know that I was barely 12 years old when I got that lesson. Now, I had the gum lesson, which is literally the same lesson, but with a piece of gum. And the teacher asks if you want a piece of gum, and then she takes the chewed bit out of her mouth and offers it to you. I had that one when I was about 14. And when I was 16, there was a special sisters and priesthood lesson where the boys were separated from the girls in my seminary class, and they had the boys go to a different part of the building for a priesthood lesson, while the girls stayed in this other portion of the building for a sisters lesson, a Relief Society lesson. The sister seminary teacher, meaning a woman, which wasn't necessarily rare, but it was less common. And at the time, you could not have children at home. Like, there was requirements. Like, our teacher had grown children, so she was allowed to work outside the home. So I don't know if the rules have changed for that or not. Anyway, she had at one point explained that to us, that you could be a sister seminary teacher, but only if you didn't have kids at home or obligations. Anyway, so she was the female seminary teacher, and she did a similar lesson to this gum and cupcake lesson, taking a pottery bowl, and smashed it on the floor. And then she told us to all come and find as many pieces as we can. And we spent the whole time trying to rebuild this bowl. And you know, we had to try to glue it back together. And of course we couldn't. I was offended by these lessons to begin with. I was a person who could not freaking wait to get a boyfriend and make out and do the forbidden stuff. Virtue be damned. And my mom was open about sex. I was very curious, and I was really skeptical about these implications. For those who, I talked in my previous video a little bit more in depth about the trauma that I did carry from these lessons. My virtue was not one of those trauma things. But for those of you who have followed me from the beginning or have watched all my videos, you know that I did not wait till marriage. I wasn't a virgin when I got married the first, or, you know, obviously the second time. And I did not feel at that time that I repented that I was damaged that way. That's a whole other story though, and I will definitely get there with my Mormon story. But these lessons are obviously, they're things that still stuck with me so vividly in my mind that I remember all of those details right down to what the cupcake cup looked like and what the color the frosting was and everything. Even while I was 16 years old, on the ground, hands and knees, picking up whatever pieces the clay pot I could to fix what couldn't be fixed, I whispered to one of my best friends, I'd still do it. And she giggled and was like, me too. Like, yeah, by then, like, we already knew exactly what was coming. We knew what that lesson was about, that we were about to be fed. Anyway, the song, it came across my feed. Again, Google it. I don't think you'll find it on Spotify. It's, I don't even know where it came from. It was like, I think it was on Facebook, maybe in one of my ex-Mormon groups I'm in, and the song popped up and I went and Googled it and I found the song. And then when I went back to Facebook, the feed had refreshed and I don't even know where it came from, but it's a great song. And I love the flip from licked cupcake, which equals damaged, to lick my cupcake, which is an invitation and innuendo for not just pleasure, but also an indication that this woman has control and consent over her own body and what is done with it. Note that the first few lines of this song reference all of the lessons that I personally endured as a youth. So I think it's super empowering. So give it a listen and leave a comment. Even if you don't listen to the song, like, let's talk about the lesson I portrayed in the story. I'll reply with videos. I'm really enjoying that aspect of TikTok. And so thank you so much for listening to this. I would love to hear your versions. What did you hear? What do you remember as a girl about these types of lessons? If you're a man, what kind of purity lessons? I know that men get a lot of lessons against pornography, like that's kind of what they focus on for boys. What did you guys experience regarding that as well? I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment or email me at brae, BRAE.wordsofexmormon, and I will look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, and think terrestrial.